This is Science Quest. With your host, Jed Allen Friels. He's taking you around the world, discussing everything science.
Hi, I'm Jed Allen Friels, and thanks for joining me today on Science Quest. Today we're on the Arnie J. Richter car ferry, and we're on our way to Washington Island. And believe it or not, the reason we're going to Washington Island is to talk to a very special gentleman about, believe it or not, radio. Hi, we've just arrived outside the ham shack of W9EVT, otherwise known as George Ulm, the voice heard around the world. One of the first things you're going to notice outside the ham shack here are all these antennas. Can you take a look at the size of that antenna? That's what it takes to send amateur radio around the world. To learn some more, let's go up and find out if George is in on the radio. Hi, George. Jed Allen Friels. It's great to see you. Did I catch you on the air?
Almost all the time.
Almost all the time. Good.
November Echo 2, India. Happy 4th of July, George. My name is Chris. Hey, George, take care.
M5ALJ, W9EVT.
W9, give me a call.
Yeah, Whiskey 9 Echo Victor Tango, George, on the island of Washington, off the state of Wisconsin.
Island of Washington, thank you very much. Whiskey 9 Echo Victor Tango, thank you for the call, George. Happy 4th of July to you and family. And you're 5 and 9, USL.
Thank you for the 5 and 9, Chris. You're 5 and 8 to 9 on Washington Island. Whereabouts are you actually located in the UK?
I'm in Ireland. I'm in north of Ireland, the northwest of Ireland, USL.
Okay, in Ireland. Thank you very much. And 73 to you and happy 4th of July.
17 and happy 4th of July.
Wow, George, look at all these radios. What a collection. This is amazing. How many radios do you have, George?
Well, the whole collection will be slightly under 1,000.
1,000
Operating
radios.
pieces, but here we're only showing about 300.
300 radios here in the radio room
Yes.
at the ham shack. I got to tell you, George, this isn't much of a shack. This is pretty fancy.
They start from about 1937 when I first got on the air, and I've been adding them every month or so, a radio here, a radio there.
You've been on the air since 1937.
Right?
That's amazing. How old were you when you got on the air, George?
I was just turning 8.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
George, you know, there's a lot of controversy over what ham stands for. Nobody really knows. But I know it has something to do with amateur radio, right?
That's right. These are a bunch of people, boys, children, men and women, who enjoy the hobby, and it's an ability to help the community as well as to enjoy themselves, mostly for the rest of their lives, because you can be handicapped, you can be young or old and still enjoy the hobby.
That's amazing. That's really cool. George, could you tell us just a little bit about how amateur radio actually works?
Well, amateur radio works basically on a radio equipment which is either assembled by hams from parts, or they are able to buy completed units at a store, or even kits are available. And when they are all put together, utilizing radio waves, the radio signals travel from the radio transmitter through the aerial into the air and at an angle. And it hits 3 dust layers.
Okay.
They're called Heaviside Kennelly layers. They're called A, B, and C. The signals will go straight out to the horizon and then leave the Earth, but some of the signal will go up and bounce through or on one of those layers, and then bounce back to Earth and back up and down, and that's how the signals get around the Earth.
Amazing. How far can you talk to people then, George?
You can talk anywhere on the Earth, and if we ever are located in another location, it'd probably even be easier.
Amazing. That's phenomenal. Who have you talked to today, George? What kind of countries?
I've talked to Belgium, I've talked to Japan, I've talked to New Zealand. I had a conversation planned for a friend of mine that I met in Germany once, and he now lives halfway up Kilimanjaro, and he's invited me to come to his place in Kenya and to basically stay with him for a few weeks, and he will take me on his own safari.
Wow!
I've been able to live all over the world and visit hams and stay with them they also come and visit me.
All through amateur radio.
All through ham radio.
That's really, really exciting. George, let me ask you a question. I know the word Collins means something in amateur radio. What can you tell me about Collins?
Well, Collins is, there are about 8 or 9 companies that built amateur radio equipment from First World War to now.
Okay.
Most of them have dwindled away because of the Japanese, and very shortly all of them will be gone because of the invent of the current Chinese equipment that is starting to come in.
Wow, George, rumor has it that you have an amazing Collins collection. Is that true?
Well, I have a pretty good collection. Come on, follow me. I'll show you where it is.
We're going to get to see George's Collins collection. This is amazing. Let's go this way.
It's just over here on this side.
Just follow George. Just go with George. That's great.
And this is a room that is basically filled with radio equipment that was produced by Collins Radio in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They are no longer making amateur radio equipment. They still, however, make military and commercial radios. And if you fly with United Airlines or American, any airship that travels across the ocean uses Collins communication gear.
George, I see desk setting here. Would this have been the type of amateur radio station that someone might have had in their home?
Yes, but they only made very few of these, and that item over there in the top center is the last piece of Collins equipment that was made. It's a transceiver, and those became quite expensive. A couple $1,000s would basically produce a radio like that. The radios that you see around here are called the Collins A-line, and this is equipment that was produced right after World War II. And then there was an attempt to compete against the Japanese, so the radios on this wall over here are radios that have been made smaller and lighter, and they are compact, cost a little bit less, but technically more advanced. And most hams own Collins equipment. Some of that equipment on that wall over there is equipment that was used by the military, but can be used for amateur radio. And we were the first. The Collins was the first company that was able to make communication equipment that could actually keep track of the bombers that were carrying atomic weapons around the Pacific and the Atlantic Theater, because for a while we weren't able to talk to our own planes. They were too far away.
Amazing.
And Collins was given a contract to make equipment allowing them to be able to talk to each other no matter where they were.
Wow. George, obviously ham radio is a passion of yours. Tell me why ham radio is so important to people.
Well, in emergencies such as would occur through a hurricane, through a tornado, the terrible problems we had down with Haiti, the problems in India with the tsunamis, in all cases amateurs were there, sent in a group, normally put into an airplane and landed in that area with a generator and a transceiver and an antenna, and able to communicate and set up communications. In all areas of the world, if there is a disaster, we normally lose cell phones, regular telephones, and the normal ways of communication. Amateur radio can reestablish this in a number of hours, and basically augments and helps the American Red Cross, the military, and the civilian people that are trying to get things operational. We have literally saved thousands and thousands of lives and helped in all these instances.
That's fantastic. George, if somebody was really interested in getting into ham radio, how much would it cost someone to just get started in ham radio?
Well, if they bought new equipment, probably $600 or $700.
Okay.
If they bought used equipment, just a couple $100.
So a couple $100, you could be started in ham radio, and you could be talking to people in other states.
That's right.
Maybe even other countries.
But you need a license.
Have to have a license.
And the licenses right now have become the easiest they ever have. There used to be a code test. There is no code test anymore.
Okay.
At the present time, I would say a couple days of study with the equipment that's available on the internet, which you can get through ARRL, will give you enough information to pass the exam.
So if you pass the exam, then you get a license.
Then you get a license.
When you get a license, is that how you get your call letters?
Well, they assign you your call. However, you can ask for a specific set of calls if they have not been issued, like a license plate. It is the possibility of getting whatever letters you want if they have not already been assigned.
That's phenomenal. So for a couple $100, someone can start out, and they can have their own call letters. Now, W9EVT is obviously already taken.
Yes, it is, but it could probably be N9EVT or A9EVT, and that would be another person.
That's amazing. George, thank you so much for joining us today on Science Quest.
Nice to see you.
Remember, the quest for answers sometimes can be found in your own backyard, and sometimes they can be found on an island way up in Wisconsin, out on the shores of Lake Michigan. I'm Jen Allen Friels, and thanks for joining George and I today on Science Quest.
My pleasure.